JD Vance mentioned that there seems to be three versions of the 3 point plan out there, and I think it's actually more. But yeah, but
Okay.
the thing is that the most important one, we haven't seen the most important one, which is the one that the Islamic Republic. So we know that there was okay. We know there was one version that the Islam. So when it comes to the ceasefire agreement, the Islamic Republic came up. The Americans came up with their 15 point plan. The Islamic Republic came with multiple versions of a 10 point plan. We know there was one that they gave to the Americans, that the Americans that were looked at it, and then there's another 10 point plan that the Islamic Republic put out there in Persian, and there's another which mentions that yeah, we're good. We have the right to enrich uranium was included there, and then there was another 10 point plan that the Islamic Republic put out there in English that didn't mention that at all. And then there's also mention about another 10 point plans that news outlets got from I don't know where, that everybody is like made President Trump angry. I don't know where that one is referring to. So there's multiple, but the most important ones is the one that the Americans saw and they were like, okay, okay, we could work with this. And I think that's the one that the Islamic Republic doesn't want anyone to see, because they will, they will skin Ghalib off alive in Iran if they ever find out that this is how flexible he's being to the Americans.
I could definitely see how like the left is trying to play on like the different version of that 10 point plan and then blame it on President Trump. Like I could definitely see
Yeah, I'm
that.
actually like I was watching Piers Morgan, and Piers Morgan was like, "Oh my god, this is embarrassing! Like this would be a defeat for America." And then his guest was like, "Well, that's not the one that they agreed to." And then he was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's very convenient. Everything you don't like," Piers Morgan was responding to his guest, "is not the real thing." I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is like news. Like this is everywhere. Like how does Piers Morgan not pay attention to the news before he comes on his own show and embarrasses himself?"
Oh, another quick brief question. I think that is the Iran falling gonna like impact China because feel like
Oh yeah.
China is really unstable right now after like its military is just completely like it's starting to fall apart with like the Central Military Committee had like maybe like 70% of its member gone. Basically, you only have 2% now. That's a question for Jeffrey.
Wait, let me just have the fall of the Islamic Republic is going to impact every country in the world,
Yeah,
including obviously China. Okay.
because
But
China
I
is like
think that, yeah, go
the
on.
big Russia, Iran, China like alliance. It's
But yeah,
like
but
it,
something that people need to keep into account, that as devastating this is going to be for China, China prioritizes Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, and and these other countries over the Islamic Republic. And this is going to be devastating for the CCP. But if they had to choose between the Islamic Republic and these countries, China will always go for these countries. Always goes with Saudi Arabia, UAE, Qatar. You could see in the 20-year plan that they had with the Islamic Republic, they had a similar plan with the Saudi Arabia, and they follow through with their plan with Saudi Arabia, but they didn't with the Islamic Republic. They considered the Islamic Republic to be much more unreliable compared to these other oil-rich countries, oil and gas-rich countries. But yeah, Jeffrey, you
okay.
wanted to respond to that as well?
Yeah, I mean, like losing the Mullah regime, I'm a little more bullish on the impact or the data. Like the Chinese Communist Party, the reason it supported the Mullah regime is because it got a large portion of its discounted oil from them, which is why the Chicoms did all the things they did to materially support the Mullah regime, both prior and now in many cases after the current operations by the United States and Israel against the Mullah regime. So I would contend like losing the Mullah regime and or Iran, because the Mullah occupied Iran as a proxy is going to have ungodly level of impact on both Putin's criminalized counterintelligence state and the Chinese Communist Party, which is also why they're providing the support that they are, albeit they're trying to game it out so they can give maximum support right below where we would might like respond directly. So, that's a very insightful question to ask.
Not, Just a quick point. I was just seeing like on Chinese social media, there is like generally a bunch of people. This also like hurt China ideologically because there is generally a bunch of people who is generally supporting the Mullah regime. Like they're not the hater, but like the amount of their support on the I see like the liberation of Iran is like the soft underbelly of the three axis, like Iran, Russia, China. Iran is basically like the Italy, the soft underbelly that we can like sneak in and crack open the crack.
Very
So
true.
Okay,
can
thank you.
Although the people on social media are probably more CCP aligned and not the average Chinese citizen. The average Chinese citizen fucking hates the Chinese Communist Party, and they have a serious problem with their allies.
let me just add some context for you guys to see how the relationship between the Islamic Republic and China is so one-sided, right? So let me just first focus on oil. Hold on. Okay, so the Islamic Republic's oil to China, 91%. 91% of Islamic Republic's oil goes to China. That's huge. Okay. From China, from China's perspective, 12% of their oil comes from the Islamic Republic, right? So 91 reliance on the Islamic Republic side, 12% reliance on the Chinese side. And by the way, that's the 12% that is replaceable to Russia or somewhere else, right? But the Islamic Republic for it is not that replaceable. But the situation even gets worse when you look at non-oil, right? So look at this. The Islamic Republic's total exports, 33% to China. 33% of the like one third of all of the Islamic Republic's exports goes to China. From China's perspective, imports from Iran is 1.5% of its imports come from Iran. So if you only focus on oil, but now if you focus on everything, 1.5%. You could see that the Islamic Republic relies on China so much more than China relies on the Islamic Republic. For CCP, losing the Islamic Republic is sad. Like, this bad. Strategically, it's not good. For the Islamic Republic, it losing CCP is devastating. It's like basically a survival issue, right? So the relationship is very one-sided. The Islamic Republic needs China. China doesn't need the Islamic Republic. China benefits from the Islamic Republic, but it doesn't need the Islamic Republic. And that's why it's so easy for China to throw it under the bus when it doesn't need it anymore. Okay.
Okay, our response list is Olga and then Guy.
Hello, everyone. I just want to relate to the 10 points. So, in general, there are several versions as far as I understand, and could be also some sort of strategy for IRCG. But if we go to specific points, and in my opinion, by the way, this is I cannot find it not insulting to accept it by the allies. But if we go to two specific points in that list, so one of them would be the opening Strait of Hormuz and collecting the toll for the ship of $2 million per ship. And the second one is forcing the ceasefire on Israel and on the northern border, on Hezbollah, which is already there is a request by a U.S. administration to consider a ceasefire. First, it was no, Israel is not engaging in a ceasefire concerning the northern border. And then now there's becoming a request because RCG came with we're not starting negotiations and we will bomb Tel Aviv unless there is a ceasefire on Hezbollah as well. So it's specifically if you can relate to those specific points and from your point of view.
Yeah, so it's very interesting because these should be the easy parts of the agreements, right? We haven't even gotten to the difficult parts, which is the ballistic missiles and the enriched uranium. And you can see everything is falling apart already based on the easier parts of what they're supposed to be agreeing upon, right? So the so obviously the Islamic Republic's understanding is when it comes to the Strait of Hormuz, that it has found a leverage that it's the only leverage it has, right? And giving it up will mean that it's like, why would I do that? Like, why would I give, especially the way that the Strait of Hormuz works, by the way, is that if you open it, the Islamic Republic, it's not like the Islamic Republic would can gain its leverage back right away by closing it again, because all of the ships that are with all of these oil tankers filled with barrels of oil in the Persian Gulf, if you open it for a while, they will all get released. They have all piled up in the in the Persian Gulf right now, and once they get released, even if you close it, well, they're already gone, and it's going to take a while for you to get back to the point where it's going to be painful to the world, especially given that if you open the Strait of Hormuz, a lot of countries are going to be like, oh, let's pile up as much barrels of oil that we can and gas, like let's increase our reserves in case if they close it again, we're going to be good for a long time. By the way, CCP was smart enough to do this ahead of time. The CCP had huge reserves of oil. So I don't know. Olga, can you close your microphone, please? I'll close it for you. Okay, there you go. Close it yourself. Had huge reserves of oil, and they're doing not as badly, like because they were prepared for this. I mean, I'm not saying it's not hurting. It hurts. It hurts regardless. But other countries are not going to do this if the Strait of Hormuz opens. I mean, it hasn't opened yet, but if it does open, the Islamic Republic will lose a lot of leverage because a lot of countries are going to use this opportunity. Once oil prices drops significantly, people are going to go on a buying frenzy to make sure that if it gets closed again, they already have enough, right? So the Islamic Republic knows that it cannot just give that away willy nilly, because it's a leverage that if you give away, it's hard to get it back. And now that they see this so effective, they want to keep using it because they don't have any other deterrent capability. Like they have very limited other deterrent capability other than this and Hezbollah. And this is how these two are connected, right? So the Islamic Republic has lost many of its missiles, many of its drones, most of it, like its air force, its navy. A lot of it's gone. What is left? I mean, the only thing that it has is the remaining parts of its drone capability, the remaining rockets and launchers that it has, Hezbollah's deterrent capability, and the fact that with its remaining drones and missiles, even though they're so much more limited, it can control the Strait of Hormuz. So it's going to try to keep those. This is why the Islamic Republic needs to try to defend Hezbollah right now, because Hezbollah is part of the leverage that the Islamic Republic has right now, because it has already lost many of its own missile launching capability to threaten Israel. So Hezbollah needs to pick up right now where the Islamic Republic is failing, right? So this is why Israel is moving into Lebanon to try to, this is one of the most devastating attacks, by the way, right now, when Hezbollah is happening right now, and not that many people are talking about it. But while we're dealing with the Islamic Republic behind the scenes, Israel is basically doing an ass whipping of the remaining parts of Hezbollah, and the Islamic Republic really wants to stop that, because if it continues, they will lose one of the remaining points of pressure that they have. I mean, does that make sense, Olga? Like, does that even answer your question? I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Yeah, thank you. It makes sense, though they
Yeah.
asked Israel to stop, to halt the attack. United U.S. administration, like recently, today, and for the Strait of Hormuz. So they are also collecting tolls. I don't want to get to the harder part of this 10 points in like, but
Yep.
regarding those two, like they're collecting tolls, and that's huge. It also can, it comes with a rise in, sometimes will comes in rise with prices, though it's not the only way to cross to there is a bypass through African continent, which can be less costly if we're thinking about long range of this delivery and the supply chains. But still, this is
There is no
so
way to get.
odd to.
There's only, okay, if you want, like, even if you want to go the long. I mean, the only the to get the oil out of that area around the Persian Gulf, you either have to go through the Strait of Hormuz, or you have to use a pipeline that the Saudis built that goes from East Saudi Arabia to West, but it doesn't have the capacity of this. Or you have to use the pipeline that the Emiratis have built that goes through Oman and basically bypasses the Strait of Hormuz, which that one also doesn't have the capacity of the Strait of Hormuz. Or the Iraqis also have a pipeline that goes, I don't know where it goes, but it goes north from Iraq. But none of these pipelines have the capacity that the Strait of Hormuz has. But there is no, like, if you want to bring back the capacity that you had before, there's no other way other than the Strait of Hormuz. I think that the thing that you're talking about, uh, going around, I don't know, there is no other way. Like, you have to go through the Strait of Hormuz.
Can't you bypass Africa with sea by
I think
sea?
I think you're talking about the Bubble Mandab Strait
And
when
Bubble
you're talking
Mandab,
about
that's for sure.
for
That's
Strait of
true. We can
Hormuz. No,
bypass
for Strait of
complex
Hormuz,
strait.
there is no other way. Like, if you look at the map,
There's
the
no.
Persian Gulf,
I
there is
shall
no other
see. I
way.
shall
There's
see.
a
But
Strait of
perhaps
Hormuz.
you're.
Yeah, that's a different. You're
So that,
thinking of a different strait. Yeah,
yeah, that's true. That's true. But still, the
yeah,
pipelines, of course, they don't have the same capacity as the Strait of Hormuz.
they don't. Yeah,
No,
yeah.
unfortunately. But collecting the toll is also very heavy. It will make IRCG very rich very soon.
Right. Yeah, I mean, they're making a lot of money right now. Yeah,
Okay,
that's
Yeah.
why
I
you see
gotta
all
go to
these
next.
proxies coming. Okay, next.
BT.
He
Thank
had a
you.
response here.
Oh,
Okay,
Guy
you
had a
get
response.
20 seconds and then BT.
Yeah, I'll make it quick. So, you mentioned China going after the Gulf countries. One, that's new, and two, their only leverage was their ability to influence Iran. Like, their foot in the door with Saudi was the deal, the negotiations between them and Iran. And as for Lebanon, it's not true that we were asked to stop firing. We were asked to lower the amount of firing. We're still very much firing, and that also has to do with the fact that Nabil Berri has finally agreed to allow the government to negotiate with Israel after we
Yes.
attack people close to home. So it's a combination of those things. It's not just due to the Iranian threat, and we're still firing. There is very much not a ceasefire there.
Right. BT,
Yeah.
go.
Okay, two things. Well, first of all, can you please check your moderator message group? If you haven't seen it already, Nare yesterday sent over one of the 40 days after death celebrations that the Armenian Christian Church held. Have you seen that?
Yes. A church in Iran, a Christian church in Iran, right?
That's what you're talking about.
Yes. Was that as shocking to you as it felt to me? Also, I feel like that, maybe hardline Muslims would be offended by something like that, because are they even allowed to go into a Christian church?
Oh yeah, all the time. They love doing that. Hold on, let me actually show the. Let me show you. It's what
I also feel confused. Why would
what
the
BT.
Armenian Christian Church be so sad that he passed away?
Okay, let me show you what BT is referring to here. So yes. Okay, so this is what BT is referring to. So for the 40th day memorial of Ali Khamenei, they held in Saint Sarkis Church in Tehran. They had this memorial for Khamenei, and you can see IRGC people are there, and Christian Armenian, Christian people are there, holding a memorial for Ali Khamenei. Let me actually see if I could zoom here. And I don't know why, like, a lot of people were shocked. Like, why is there a church in Tehran? Why are these Islamic Republic officials inside a church? Why are they holding a memorial session for Ali Khamenei inside a church? It's interesting that people find it surprising, because that's the Islamic Republic does that all the time. We have synagogues and churches in Iran, and the Islamic Republic loves to use them as a way to show, like, look at how tolerant we are. We have these things here. You think that we are anti-Christian and anti-Jewish? We have synagogues, we have churches, and if especially this right now, that makes the most sense for them to do that right now, to go on, right now, because there's so much anti-Islamic Republic and pro-Islamic Republic's narratives out there. This is why I say we need to be accurate with our narrative, right? When the Islamic Republic does the most brutal, crazy shit ever, and then some people then go and assume everything else about them. They think like, oh, that means that if you're a Christian in Iran, they will come hunt you down and kill you. And if you have a church, if they see a church, like Bible is illegal in Iran. There's you could only be Christian if you're like, it's this underground networks. And I don't know, if you say I believe in Jesus, they will execute you on the spot, right? And Islamic Republic loves people saying that narratives about them. Sometimes I think the Islamic Republic actually spreads that narrative. Like they go around or like, oh yeah, did you know in Iran, the Islamic Republic, if they find somebody with the Bible, they will execute them on the spot. They spread that narrative to then come and be like, hey, look, they're lying to you about us. We have churches. We actually go to like the regime officials actually go to churches. See, the Americans are lying to you. Your media is lying to you. So they must be lying about everything else. So if they tell you that we have executions of people who are anti-regime, if they lied to you about this, they must be lying about that as well. If they tell you that we killed more than 40,000 people in the streets, see, like, did you know that we have churches? You didn't know. Are you shocked? So if this is shocking, so what if I told you that they're also lying to you about the fact that we're anti-Jewish, or that we want to kill, that we have killed that we executing people just for disagreeing with the regime. So I think this is a very effective strategy that the Islamic Republic uses. And I wouldn't be surprised if these Christians and Jews in synagogues are actually pro-regime, because the regime treats them very well, because they're token Christians, they're token Jews. The Islamic Republic loves to demonstrate them, and I bet you they're treated very, very well. Like the Jews, for example, in synagogue, the official synagogues that the Islamic Republic has approved inside Iran, I bet you whoever's running that synagogue, the Islamic Republic is treating them very, very well, because this is such an effective way of doing propaganda. You could while you are like for example, the IRGC has forces like the 840 unit within the Quds army that is specifically, its entire purpose is to go find not just Israelis but Jews, any Jews around the world, to find and kill, right? As a way to demonstrate that they could do these things, right? And then yet they have their own synagogues in Iran. And if anybody comes and says that, oh, the Islamic Republic is not just anti-Zionist and anti-Jewish, you're like, well, look at our synagogues. How could we be anti-Jewish? Look at our synagogues, right? There you go. So it's basically, it works. It's very effective.
Oh, what?
Yeah, I mean, I need to say, like, I actually have a term for this. I call it the boy who cried wolf effect, where the idea is if you essentially can like place a situation so that it's like you get, if you lie about a situation enough times, like people will stop believing you. And you can like do that also as like a technique where it's like you can like, show proof like, oh yeah, no, clearly they're making up stuff, propaganda. And then, boy who cried wolf effect, where it's like, then they won't believe like the next cry wolf. So
yeah, and Samantha, that's why we know the Islamic Republic sometimes spreads false news against itself. The Islamic Republic has been caught sometimes spreading false news against the Islamic Republic, to then eventually so after it's picked up and it becomes widespread, it will come and provide evidence that is false, to cause basically confusion among all the narratives regarding the Islamic Republic. That's what it does.